Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Project Unity's Listen and Learn speaker series. My name is Charlene Edwards. I'm the program and events director for Project Unity, and it's my pleasure to have you join us for our final segment of our Listen and Learn speaker series. We are in for a treat tonight, so settle in and prepare to listen to Mr. Curtis King as he shares his journey with us. I am now going to turn it over to Richie Butler, founder of Project Unity, who's going to help introduce Mr. Curtis King, and then we'll be in get ready to hear his story. So, Richie.
All right. Thank you, Charlene. And again, welcome everyone welcome joining us for this evening's Listen and Learn. I am delighted and overjoyed to have the opportunity to introduce this living legend here in the North Texas region. For those of you who are not based here in North Texas, Dallas, everyone knows the name Curtis King. Curtis is an American director, producer, and the founder and president of the nationally acclaimed the Black Academy of Arts and Letters, better known here in North Texas as TBAAL. Mr. King founded TBAAL at his dinner table with a $250 investment. And now this institution is one of America's beloved, renowned, multidisciplinary art institution whose mission is to foster, promote, cultivate, perpetuate, and preserve the arts and letters of the African, Caribbean, and African American experience in the fine literary, performing, visual, and cinematic arts. And since its inception, 1977, under his leadership, TBAAL has generated over 150 million in revenue to support the venue capital campaign and improvements, programs, and operations. And this not-for-profit is located in Dallas at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center, occupies over 250,000 square feet of performance, exhibition, rehearsal, and administrative office space, and over 250,000 patrons and visitors go through TBAAL on an annual basis. He is phenomenal. He is a leader in our community, and we celebrate his leadership. He is a graduate of Jackson State University. He also attended that school in Fort Worth. I will leave nameless. No, he attended TCU, and he is also working on his PhD at the University of Texas at Dallas. He is, again, a director. He's a producer. He has been a trendsetter. He is an innovator. He is a mentor. He is a leader. He is someone who is about justice and about improving our community and leveraging the arts to bring about social change. And so it is, well, without any further ado, that I just want to present this living legend of North Texas and the United States and global, and that is none other than Curtis King. Curtis, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Whoa. That was good. I'm going to hire you to be my publicist. First of all, thank you so much, Pastor. And thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to always share my story. I want to thank my good friend, Dr. Jones, for recommending me to have a sit-down conversation, particularly at a time when the world is full of chaotic things that are going on. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk a lot about my journey with the Black Academy of Arts and Letters. And first of all, you're sitting in a gallery that's named after an artist called James E. Kemp. And Kemp was a visual artist that lives in Dallas, Texas. But let me just go back. First of all, I'm from a little town called Coldwater, Mississippi. Now, most people probably don't have a clue of what Coldwater is. Coldwater is a little small town in Mississippi that's about 25 miles south or north of Memphis, Tennessee, depending on which direction. I graduated from a little high school that was called Tate County Colored High School at the time. Now it's not colored no more because integration came, and so now it is called Coldwater High School. When I graduated from the high school, I went to Jackson State University. And there at Jackson State University, I met the great famous Margaret Walker, who is the author of 10 books. And two of her most famous books are Jubilee and For My People. And if you haven't read those books, you need to go and read those books. One is a novel, and one is an essay of poems. And so when I went to Jackson State, I remember I was standing in a registration line, and somebody said that Margaret Walker was teaching at Jackson State. And I said, Margaret Walker, the writer? And they said, yes, Margaret Walker, the writer. So when I finished registering, I went to the Language Arts Building on Jackson State University campus. And I said to her, I said, are you Margaret Walker? No, it was Mrs. Curry, a secretary said, is Margaret Walker here in this office? And Dr. Alexander was sitting behind Mrs. Curry. She raised her head up. She says, I'm Margaret Walker. What can I do to help you? And I said, oh my God, I have never met a living writer before because Margaret Walker was a part of the Harlem Renaissance. She was a part of the Chicago Writers Project. She was a part of the Workman's Project in Chicago that was funded by the federal government. And I was just so moved by this woman that I had read about and had studied in high school. And here I am standing here in her office talking to the great Margaret Walker. So I stayed around this woman. And so a couple of years later, when I was a sophomore at Jackson State, she was a keynote speaker for a conference called the State Conference to Assess the State of Black Arts and Letters in the United States. And I was one of 3 students that Margaret Walker chose to go to Chicago, which is the first time I was on a flight. And coming from the South, I'm going to Chicago and I'm going to meet all these famous people. And when I got to Chicago and saw Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Diane Carroll, Della Reese, Maya Angelou, Sonia Sanchez, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, all these great people. So here I am, this little kid from the South in Chicago with Margaret Walker, who was the keynote speaker. And I'm running around like, oh my God, I can't believe this. While all the rest of the students were running around getting autographs, I was getting everybody addresses and their phone numbers. And so I left the conference in Chicago. When I got back to Mississippi, I wrote everybody a letter and thanked them for giving me their information and told them that I would be in communication with them. I did. Most of the people wrote me back, and I still have most of those letters from all of the names that I just mentioned when I was a student at Jackson State, and this was in the latter 70s, early 80s. So I left Jackson State, went to graduate school that Dr. Butler won't talk about, but there was the great TCU, Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. I had 4 fellowship offers. I had a fellowship offer that my professor Tommy, who's a great actress, Tania Stewart, at the University of California, Santa Barbara, University of Iowa, and Idaho State University. But I took the TCU fellowship because they had offered the money first. And so when I got to Fort Worth, it was still tugging at me, I wanted to be a fellow of the Black Academy of Arts and Letters. And then I found out when Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee came to TCU to do a part of a Lyceum program, they said, what are you doing here in Texas? Because I met them in Mississippi with Margaret Walker because they were good friends. And I said, I'm in graduate school here. And I said, oh, I want to be a member of the Black Academy. I want to be a fellow. They said, now this is a couple of years later. They said, the Academy is not in existence anymore. I said, oh my God. I said, what happened? They said, we'll tell you about it. But I never saw them anymore. And so then I stayed in Fort Worth. I was a member of Mount Olive Baptist Church, which was a very large Black church in Fort Worth. And I worked with a community theater called the Sojourner Truth Community Theater, which is an outgrowth of another theater in Fort Worth called the Jubilee Players. Well, long story short, I did this big conference festival called the Sojourner Truth National Cultural Arts Festival, and I invited a lot of these writers that I met, not writers, a lot of these artists that I met in Chicago to be a part of the festival. Margaret Walker, the great Bear Richards, who was nominated for an Oscar for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Elizabeth Catlett, who was a great sculptor, uh, Clarence Muse, Della Reese, Esther Roll, who is my godmother, all of them came to Fort Worth to do this festival. Joe Nash, who was over the Black Dance documentation program, told me that he had something that he wanted to give me. So what he did when he came to the festival to do one of the panels, he bought me 4 books, 4 boxes of the original history of the formation of the Black Academy of Arts and Letters that had been found in a New York dumpster. So I said, oh my God. In those 4 boxes, there was a letter from the great Langston Hughes. And so I said, how did you get this? And he said, what had happened was the Black Academy office had been closed, and his office was next door to the Black Academy office. And it was at 475 Riverside Drive. And so they had told the custodians that they needed them to clean out the office space. So the custodians cleaned out the office space, put all of this history in a New York dumpster, and the custodian bought some books to him. Mr. Nash said, Mr. Nash, there's some books here I thought you might be interested in. So he looked at him, he said, so where did you get this from? He said, oh, we had to clean out the Black Academy office. So what we did is we put it in the trash. So Joe Nash went to the dumpster, led by the custodian, and he said, oh my God, this is amazing stuff. And he got the original records and the minutes from the Black Academy. He called Gene Hudson, who was over the Schomburg collection. Now, these may be just names, but these are very historical places. Schomburg collection is the largest African American cultural collection in the entire world. So he salvaged, called Gene Hudson, and Gene Hudson sent 4 interns to go to the New York dumpster and salvage as much of that history as they could. And he gave me the 4 boxes because he knew of my interest in the Black Academy. So what I did, I took those four boxes, traveled. I went worked for a year at Shaw University. Then I left Shaw University, went to New York City, stayed in New York City for a year, then came back to Dallas and ended up in a PhD program. But I still traveled with those 4 boxes of material. So I had been offered to go to New York, to LA to stay with Clarence Muse, who was a great film actor. He did 220 films before he passed away. And he told me, if you come to LA, I'll put you in the best directing school in LA, and you can come here and stay with me and my wife. And so I said, no, I think I'm gonna go back to Texas. So I ended up going back to Texas, came back to Texas, got in the PhD program with these 4 boxes. And then what I did is I sat down, opened up a bank account. I only had $500 in the bank. And I took $250 of that money and opened up the bank account. And that's when I started the Black Academy on my dining room table with the $250. So, which is interesting. I'm going to go forward, then I'm going to come back. $250 to start an organization. $250 million project with a renovation that's about to happen with our current venue in a 250,000 square foot facility, which I think is spiritually mind boggling for me. From $250, $250 million in a 250,000 square foot venue. Since that time, I have directed and produced a lot of plays. Starting this project has been emotionally draining. It has been discouraging along the way. At one point, we moved from my dining room table to a 40,000 square foot venue in East Dallas, and we ended up losing that venue. And when we lost that venue, which is another long story that'll be in my book, but we lost that venue, and for 9 years, we were kind of like just looking for anywhere that we could to perform. I was really going to give up and just say, you know what, this is not worth it. And my mother and my brother encouraged me, said, just keep doing what you're doing because it's going to pay off. So for 9 solid years, the institution did not have a place. We did productions and exhibitions in pretty much wherever we could find. And I would say that the Black church was very supportive. My church at the time was First Baptist Church of Hamilton Park, was a very large Black church. My deceased pastor, J. Lee Foster, was very supportive. You had Concord Baptist Church, you had Good Street Baptist Church, you had St. Luke when Zanholm was there at the time. All of these churches were very supportive of the institution. And they were the one that helped to raise the money and kept saying, do not give up because this is something that's very important in the city, in the state, and in the country because Black institutions, cultural arts institutions specifically, were falling by the wayside left and right. So I felt that God was just, pulling at me and tugging at me, said, this is something you have to keep doing. Because if our history is in a trash dumpster, what is it that our young people are going to have to be able to emulate and to say something that we are proud of what it is that we're supposed to do? People always talk about young people not being able to do certain things. Anything that a young person is not is because we have not taught them and guided them and shown them the way of how to be able to do certain things. So that's been a part of my drive with the development of the institution. We at the Black Academy, we're housed downtown Dallas, Texas. But let me just show you a couple of things from where we came from. Take a look at this first location here. This was a location that was a house in Oak Cliff, Dallas, Texas. It's going to come up in a moment. This house, actually, I passed by it about a year ago, is still standing. And we were called the Junior Black Academy of Arts and Letters. So we dropped the junior and became the Black Academy because Dr. Sierra Lincoln and all of the founders of the Black Academy said, you're doing exactly what the Black Academy set out to do. So take junior off and just become the Black Academy. This is the first house that we had where we did some work, some rehearsals. Didn't stay that long because that house belonged to the United Methodist Church. And the United Methodist Church was the one that let us use that house for rehearsal space. Let's go to the next slide. This particular building is a very important part of our history because when we left that house, we went back to my dining room table in North Dallas. But this was a space that a guy by the name of Jean-Paul Baptiste, who was the first African-American director of a state arts commission, told me that there was a building in East Dallas that he thought that we might be interested in. This is that building, and there was I say this in all respect, there was a white gentleman by the name of Hilliard Griffin that we met. This place was called Griffin Christian Academy, Black Academy of Arts and Letters. Didn't know this man from Adam's cat. So I went to visit this gentleman, and I told him we didn't have any money. And he said, do you believe that this building belongs to you? I said, absolutely. He said, then let's figure out a way how to get you in the building. So we moved in this building in 1981. And the building cost was $250,000 before we were able to actually get the building to purchase. Mr. Griffin passed away. And when he passed away, the wife came in and said, we're going to up the purchase price. And so what they did was up the purchase price of this building from $250,000 to $300,000. Of course, we didn't have the money at that time. And so we ended up losing that building. We had gone that building. That building had been closed for 5 years. We went in that building literally with water hose, with shovels, with brooms and mops, and cleaned that building and painted that building, but we lost that building. At that point, I thought about what Langston Hughes said, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or sugar over like a serpent sweet? Does it sag like a heavy load, or does it explode? I thought that my dream had exploded. So, but I was determined. I was determined because I'm still traveling around with these 4 boxes of books, 4 boxes of minutes. And every time I got disgusted, I would put those boxes on the table and remind myself that the history of the Black Academy was salvaged out of a New York dumpster. So let's go to the next slide. The next slide, this was the place when we left the Peak Street building. This was a building that we went to. It was on Mitchell Street, still in East Dallas. And at that point, Annette Strauss, she was a Jewish woman who had put together the first big fundraiser for us in Dallas. You had Debbie Allen, Esther Rowe, Roy Campanella Jr., Olivia Cole, a lot of the greats. And so this was the building, the guy by the name of John Tatum said, I will let you all use this space for a very small amount of money to rent until you can find your home. So Annette Strauss, Diane Ragsdale, Al Lipscomb, Elsa Faye Higgins, they were all on the council. And they were very adamant about the institution having a permanent home. So we left this space and we went to 3 or 4 other spaces. Now, if you want to see the other spaces that we had gone to, please go to our website at TBAAL .org. That's www.tball.org. And you'll see the other locations that we went to before we landed the current location here at the convention center. So those are just 3 of the locations that we had. So now here we are, still traveling around, still doing productions. We did the concert, the Martin Luther King concert at the Symphony Hall. We did other production at the AT&T Performing Arts Center. Literally, we did production where we could find. We did productions at a place called the Bonanza Steakhouse. They don't even have those places around, but we did them there because we were so determined that our history is very important to the cultural fabric of this country and the world. And so doing all those things, we ended up in this building. Now, in the building where we're currently located, that's another whole story. So let me give you just a little bit of history about how we ended up here. Now, keep in mind, for 9 solid years, we did not have a location. For 9 years, we did not have a location. Most people would have thrown in the towel and just given up and just said, I quit. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I didn't think about that a lot of times, but I had so many incredible people around me who encouraged me as a young kid, said, keep doing what you're doing. Travis Lewis gave us $25,000, and every time the money got a little strange, somebody would come through. God would always send an angel through to bless enough to keep you going. But I still got discouraged. Now, I'm not going to tell you I didn't get discouraged. So getting in this location, there had to be a special council vote. So to get this building, now again, this building is located downtown Dallas. And when the vote went up for us to be in this current location, the vote was 7 people voted against us being here. And I'm sorry, 8 people voted against us being here, and 7 people voted for us being here. And that was very discouraging because that meant that we still did not have a location. So the community was upset. So what the council did was put it back on the agenda to vote for us being in the space, and the vote flipped from 8 people voting for us being here and 7 people voted against us being here. So we had a 10-year lease in the space, 5 years up. Now we're in a year-to-year lease. So now we back trying to figure out, okay, are we going to be able to stay in this space or not? So it went back on the council agenda. This is the second tier of it. That particular year, 14 people voted for us to be here for the continuation of this agreement, and 1 person voted against us being here. I use that number because 14-1 is very synonymous with that 14 people voting for us and 1 person voting against us. Fast forward, now we've lived past the first 10 years, and we were 15 years into the 20-year agreement. So before Councilman Dwayne Caraway's term had ended, he was pushing for us to make sure that we get an extended agreement for 30 years. That was another struggle. At that point, I said to members of the council and to people in the community, listen, if my worth and my work is of such that people don't want to see this happen, I'm going to move on and do something else, because my goal was always to be a director and producer of film. And so council members said, nope, you keep doing what you're doing, we'll take care of it. So about 3 years ago, we got a 30-year contract to be in this current location. And what was the vote that time? 14 people voted for us to be here. One person voted against. Again, 14 won again. So it's been that kind of a roller coaster. So I'm sitting in this gallery and I want to do this piece in the gallery because I'm surrounded by all of this incredibly rich history. I'm sitting here looking at a bench that Oscar Davis and Ruby Dee's family donated to us. It was the first bench that was on Broadway in 1960. I'm looking at a dress that Sarah Vaughan wore to a White House dinner. I'm looking at a dress that Dionne Warwick wore when she did a big concert at Radio City Music Hall. Looking at a garment that Della Reese wore before she passed away. They said she had a public view, and this is the garment that she would have worn. So I'm sitting here surrounded by all this rich history and thinking to myself how incredible it is that the citizens of Dallas, the citizens of the state of Texas, the citizens of the United States would give public money to allow us to have the opportunity to be able to share our cultural treasures to these communities, because I believe that if people in the arts share the cultural history of the life of people, it has a lot to do with how people become civil as human beings to each other. And that's why I think the arts are so important. It's not just art for art's sake. It's not just for entertainment's sake. And even if it's for entertainment, that's a good thing, because people need that in their life to be able to balance some of the ugly, crazy things that's going on in this world. So having said all of that, I just think about the journey. I think about the progression. I think about all the history of the people that have been a blessing and a part of my life, and people that gave so willingly to me as this little Black kid from the South. And who would have ever thought that I would have been chosen by a higher power to continue to do the work that I'm doing? And I love doing it. I tell this story too. About 2 years ago, actually about 4 years ago, I sat and watched my mother take her last breath. And 4 months after my mother took her last breath, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. 7 months after being diagnosed with prostate cancer, the Black Academy had a deficit of over $250,000 deficit. And I thought, okay, here's the death of the Black Academy again. COVID came through. I have to be honest when I say this, it was a blessing and a curse to our institution, because people came from everywhere, all over the world. When we did every Sunday evening for 12 solid weeks, we did a project called Shelter in Place, and we raised over $30,000. People were sending money to us from South Africa, Ethiopia, Australia, on social media doing a 45-minute program. And so then I just picked the phone up and just started asking people, would you please accept this amount of money? Would you please waive this cost for us so that we don't owe these things to you? And just people gave. So we were able to come out of that debt during the COVID. So that was a blessing. It was a really big blessing. I just have so many stories and that I can tell, so many blessings, with people and situations and circumstances and ideas with the people who've been a part of my life, a part of the life of this institution, a part of this journey. And I think the thing that I'm most excited about is that the city council is still supportive of the institution to do a $250 million renovation project that's going to be incredible. And again, I said earlier in the conversation, $250 on the dining room table, 250,000 square foot venue, $250 million renovation. So that's really part of my story, a part of my journey, and I'm excited about it. And I want people to come here. I want people to see it. We started a jazz festival for 7 years ago, and artists come from all over the place. This past summer, past the Labor Day weekend, we had 15,000 people to come to Dallas, to the Black Academy of Arts and Letters, and participate in a Riverfront Jazz Festival. Another thing I love about the festival, because there's a stage for promising young artists. So you have like Erykah Badu, who grew up in this theater. You have a young artist now that's on Broadway doing Aunt Juliet. There's a young man who's 11 years old that's playing the young Michael Jackson. All of these are mine. They're not my kids anymore, because these are young adults. And I tell them all, I said, listen, when you get to where you're going, and you're going to get there, you make sure you send your check back to the Black Academy of Arts and Letters. That's why I encourage people to take our memberships to the Black Academy. We take American Express, Visa, MasterCard, and post-dated checks. I have to always throw that in. So now you heard the story, you heard my history. And so I encourage people, wherever you are, if you've not been to the Black Academy, you have to come and see what is on these walls, see the performances, the music. Like this weekend, John Tatum with the men's male chorus. It's a 50-voice male chorus. It's going to be here this weekend. Next weekend, you have the great Lillian White, who's a Tony Award winner, doing a one-woman show on Sarah Vaughan. And again, if you want to see more programs that we're doing, just go to our website, go to a 48 season program, and you'll see all these things that we're doing, because we do at least 100 programs a year. So people come from everywhere to see the Black Academy of Arts and Letters and to see me. So that's my story.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. King, for sharing your story. It has been amazing to walk alongside you as you shared that. And I was just envisioning everything that you were saying. So thank you. You really brought it to life. And we are so thankful for you for rescuing those boxes, right? Just think about where that information could have landed had it not landed with you. So thank you for that. So as we open it up for Q&A, we welcome our guests to put their questions in the Q&A chat. But I'm going to kick it off with this question, or ask you to share a little more. So I shared with you previously that my daughter actually attended your summer camp that you do for our budding artists. She participated in the track of a film and photography, and she's gone on to get her master's in film. So she was inspired
Wow.
through your program. And Erykah Badu's daughter was part of that summer camp as well. You produced The
It
Lion
was.
King. Tell everyone about that summer camp and how special it is and what it means to get our kids in that space.
Well, now, they have these kids, they have all of these Curtis King stories, right? And I'm sure your daughter's probably told you a lot of them. But I want to go back. The Summer Arts Program is a project that we do in conjunction with the Dallas Independent School District. It's a piece that we've done with them for about 25 years. We've done the program for 30 some years. But what we do is the kids don't have to audition. The program is to enriching the lives of young people. Now, when they come in here, I am no nonsense. I'm old school. My mother taught public education for 41 years in the state of Mississippi. So when you walk in these doors, the first thing I tell young people is not an option. You are going to be something. You may not be a performer. You may not be a technical person, but when you come through these doors, you're going to be something. And I always look at young people when they walk in with their head down, but when they walk out, they have their heads up. And so the kids can take the performing arts, music, theater, dance. On the technical arts, they do film. They on sewing machine making costumes. They do makeup. They do hair. They run the light boards. And the productions are, if I have to say so myself, they're so good. This past summer, we did the production, and there were 5,000 people who came to see the show. And to see these kids on this stage in 3 to 4 week time is absolutely mind-boggling. They're very well-behaved kids. Now, the other thing I do is with them, sometimes if, kids gonna be kids. And I have one story, there was a young lady, they got into like a little physical altercation, right? And so I said, well, tell me what it is. And it was just little simple stuff. But what I do is I make them go and sit in a corner. I don't ask. I make them go and sit in a corner. And you cannot come out of that corner until you have talked through your conflicts and have a resolve and a dissolve. And one day, there must have been two young ladies got into the conflict. They literally stayed on, sat in the little corner for about 35 or 40 minutes. But they have to come back and tell me. They became the best of friends. And right now, two of those young ladies, they ended up being best of friends. They're in school together and they're roommates in college. So my thing with them is that when they come here, enrichment means that you're going to enrich the lives of young people so that they don't end up making the same missteps. And I tell them all the time, they said, oh, I made a mistake. You don't make mistakes here. How are you going to make a mistake if you've never done it before? So it's not a mistake. These are learning experience to help you to be able to grow and be productive citizens, and I tell them the story about learning a different language. So one of the things I told them the story about when I was in Turkey about 4 years ago, and I had a translator, and I'm in the room. This is 7th, 8th grades, and so I'm in this room and I'm talking to him, and the kids are laughing. So I turned to him. I said, "Why are they laughing?" He said, "They understand what you're saying." Those 7th and 8th grade students, they spoke three languages fluently, and they could write English. I came back and made that a point, is that you have to learn another language because the world is global. You got to be able to communicate. The other thing I say is, how are you going to audition for a role in a play or film if you can't read, if you don't understand what words mean? They cannot use their cell phones. They have to bring a dictionary. So every requirement, the kids, they have to bring a physical dictionary. Never tell them that we can't use it. If they have anything that they are doing, I always find a way with the teachers and instructors to incorporate that into the learning experience. Now, we observe the kids. So there are about 40 people, 40 professionals in the program. So from those 40 professionals in the program, we observe the kids. Then we have a master's program. In the master's program, these are students who say, I really want to be in the performing arts. And so what we do, we pay them. So they get maybe $100, $150. If they're late, they get docked. If they miss, they get docked. If they miss 2 days, they get fired. And so we're doing it in a way so that when they go out in life and working in the profession, they understand what that means. When they leave the master's program, then we have a partnership that we do with Broadway Dreams. Annette Tanner is a woman, brilliant project that she has. These kids can have the opportunity to go to New York and actually audition and work with big Broadway directors and producers. Last year, we sent 11 students to New York City to work with 100 other kids from around the world to be in our Broadway Dreams project. They are absolutely unbelievable, but they don't go in to stay prepared. They are well prepared. They are strong, and you can't tell my kids no, because if you tell them no, no means yes, maybe, possibility, or I'll try it again. And I tell them all the time, like my professor used to tell me, stay in the way. So what does that mean? When you go around the corner, you're there. When you go over the valley, you're there. Stay in the way. And so that summer enrichment program is a program with the district. It's been around for a long time. I was glad that Most of our superintendents of the schools have been there. I've been approached by 3 other districts in the area asking if we would replicate the same kind of program with them. So we're doing that because I'm not trying to save a child, I'm trying to save a generation. And I
Mm.
would tell children, you would either save my life or you would murder me. And I choose for you to save my life and save other people's lives. Why is it that at this point as adults, that I'm an adult. My mother's, before she passed away, she and I were talking, and I raised my voice, and she looked at me, she said, "Oh, is somebody else in the room?" You know, like, who you raising your voice at? You know, I know you're not talking to me, but what is it about parents and teachers and preachers and uh, adults that's put that fear in young people that made them respect the elders is because we have lost our way as adults along the way. I'm not lost my way because I would tell them, I don't care if I see a young person anywhere. I was in Chicago doing something, I was in New York doing something. I walked in the classroom, I found out who the leader is of the pack, and I pull the leader in and make the leader of the group.
Mm.
And then we create other kinds of pathways and things. And I always say, I'm here because you're going to be successful. Because anything else other than success is not an option. Now, let me tell you what success is. Success is anything that's based upon how you see yourself. Accomplishments. You know, I'm not successful, I'm accomplished. Because if I'm
Mm.
accomplished, that means that I have done this particular piece. So now I'm on to something else. And so I don't, that all of my kids have been around me. They're not failures. I use Erica as an example. When COVID came, Erica created this bubble and she found ways to be creative, you know. And when I saw her big show, she was creative. So all of the students that come through our program, we teach them how to be productive citizens. You know, don't be discouraged when somebody tells you no. Just find a way. And I always use myself as an example and the story that I just told the people who are listening. There's no way that I'm supposed to be on this corner living, doing what I'm doing. But because people put it in me, I have to put it in other people. So when
Wow.
I'm no longer on the planet, trust me, when I go to the grave, and I'm not going anywhere soon, I'll be living to be 100. I will go there at peace and at rest because I would have done the work that God has put me on this planet to do. And I do it
Amen.
with love.
Amen. Oh my gosh. Thank
I'm
you for
tired of
that.
preaching, you know.
Just like pass the basket. I'm ready. We do have some questions, and I want to make sure we try to get to them.
Mm-hmm,
I'm watching our time.
mm-hmm,
Um, one question is, you've from the time you've grown and transitioned through, I'm sure you've had great staff to be
mm-hmm,
with you.
mm-hmm.
So, like, where did you start with your number, with your first staff person? Like, what role was that? And now, what do you have as far as your staff? Just briefly talk about your staff growth.
So when I first started, it was myself. And then they used to have what they call a senior employment program. It was a program that was done by the federal government. And there was a woman, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, Hannah Marsh, she worked at she worked at the West Dallas Community Center. And she helped me to there was a woman by the name of Maddie Davis
Mm.
and another gentleman by the name of Mr. Greenwood. Can't remember his first name, but they worked with me on Peak Street. They would answer the phone and do all the things. That was how the staff began. And then we had this cadre of volunteers, Gwen Hargroves, Thomas Simon, all these great volunteers. Some of them have passed away, but we had a strong volunteer program. And so we took the volunteer program and built the staff from that. Like
Mm.
Gwendolyn Hargrove, Thomas Simon, they were volunteers, but they were full-time staff members. Now we have a full-time staff of about 10 full-time people, but, excuse me, but we have a lot of uh, contract people that
Mhm.
will work on as ushers, they'll work as concession people and things like that. But the team of people that I have now as staff members is a great team of people. They get it, they understand it. Uh, they I don't have to stand over them because I tell them all the time, if I got to stand over you and watch you, then the institution is losing money. That means I can't pay you. And
Yeah.
there's a running joke. So, okay, well, you ain't got to watch us because we want to be paid. And so my thing is that to whom much is given, much is required. I love them. I appreciate them. I thank them. They know that because they take care of me. And if they take care of me, then I am destined to take care of them.
Amen.
So it's a good staff of people. I can leave and be gone. And they'll tell me sometime, well, Ms. King, don't worry about that. We got this covered. And I never think about things not being covered here. They're very professional. Um, and I can just look a certain way and they'll know. And they'll look at patrons a certain way, and the patrons would know. And the patrons would say, now you can tell they Mr. King staff members, look at how they deal with each other. So it's a really great group of people. And this is the other thing I say. This place is not a job for them, it's a work for
Mm.
them.
Mm.
And when they come here to work, I want them to enjoy the work that they do, and they really enjoy the work. And this is what I love about them too. They'll go back and forth with each other, but it's always about the work and about the institution.
Mhm.
They don't take this stuff with them, because they know I don't like being around that kind of energy and those vibrations. So
Mm.
I think it's great. I think our volunteer team is great. We're looking for more volunteers, because we're trying to put everything together so that when we leave this venue for renovation and we come back, we're going to be at another whole level. So I'm
Mhm.
grateful for that.
Awesome. Thank you. And kudos to your staff. A couple more questions. This is a little lengthy, so let me try to get it out. Will you share your story when Sally Meadows said, "You can't bite the hand that feeds you"? Not only did you tell Sally Junior Black Academy is here, in Dallas, is here in Dallas, Texas.
Mhm.
You were determined to ask anyone and anybody to help contribute funds to the Junior Black Academy, and it's open and flourishing. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Can you share a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit?
yeah. So let me just say this. The Meadows Foundation is very much a part of the early history of the institution. Sally Lancaster was her name, and Curtis Meadows. Both of them, they really gave us the first grant that we got for the Peak Street building. Because when Mr. Griffin said that he was going to let us have the building, I sent the information back to Sally Lancaster and Curtis Meadows. And they gave us, it was $10,800, the
Mm.
money to be in that building for one solid year. And I think they probably referenced it, don't bite the hand that feeds you. I remember the story about that situation because my thing is that I grew up in the Deep South. And growing up in the Deep South, uh, the hand that fed me was the hand of my father and my grandfather, my mother. My grandfather used to always say to me, have your hands out, tell people, pay me for what I've earned, and owe no man nothing. That's
Mm.
what I didn't grow up poor in the South. We weren't rich. Uh, I wasn't homeless. I was none of that because my parents and my grandparents, they were landowners and they believed in working for a living. And everything that I'm doing, have done, and will continue to do is because I work for it. So
Mhm.
nobody's giving me anything. I don't bite no hand that feeds me. I feed the hand that feeds me. That's what the Meadows Foundation was very much a part. Meadows Foundation, Hobbiesville Foundation, they were so much a part of the early history. And what was interesting about Sally, when I first went to meet her, she had read Toni Morrison's book, and she thought it was Margaret Walker. And I said, no, they're two different people. And then when I told her that it was different person, then she went and read Margaret Walker's book, Jubilee. I love them because they love the idea of the work and things that we were doing. And the foundation was very supportive of the institution in the early years.
Absolutely.
A part of the one thing, quick thing, one part of the history is the Meadows Foundation was supporting the group that was trying to get the building, and the Meadows Foundation was also supporting us. And so what they wanted me to do was come out of the press, but I felt that we had been wrong, and that's going to be in the book. And so I kept fighting for what I believed was right. And so now looking back, all those years, somebody say, were you wrong? No, I wasn't wrong. I fought because I fought for the conviction of the 4 boxes that was found in the New York dumpster. That's what
Mm,
I fought for.
absolutely.
That's the hand that feeds me.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Just a couple more questions. And I know you can probably go long on this one, so you're gonna have to. What What are you most proud of regarding T-ball?
I'm most proud of the young people that are now professionals and adults that I have helped to shape their thinking, their ideas, to be great artists, to
Mhm.
great thinkers, to be, resilient in their soul and their spirit, and creating good work, and then to have a place and a home. And I still say a safe home and a place for them to be able to come and try and error their work. One, a good friend of mine, Akeem Opportunity, says, "Thank you for allowing this to be a laboratory for us to
Mm,
be able to do our work." We're doing a project now with the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation called the Black Seed that came out of the COVID piece. And we're doing a joint partnership with 6 African American college universities in their theater program where we fly the playwright in, the new playwrights, fly them in, put them up, and do a professional stage reading of their work. And the
mm,
goal is to do an anthology, print an anthology of these young playwrights' work. And if I tell you, that the work that these young writers are writing out here, oh, it's the real deal. So I
mhm,
think I'm most proud when I sit and watch them uh, on stage and see what they're painting and watching them dance. I think about Omar and Michael and Derek and Jada and Lucky, and I could just go down the list. And I'm calling names. And then don't get mad at me when y'all hear
But
me now.
let's go back to Ruben's question about your young leaders board, right?
Yes, and so the Millennial board members, they work really hard. They have to raise money. They do literally the exact same thing that the regular board does. There are standing committees on the regular board. There are standing committees on the Millennial board, and it's actually been around maybe a couple of years, but it's really a good group of young professionals that understand the dynamics of how the institution functions and works and things like that. I think that the institution is going to be in good hands with a group of people. They have varied backgrounds. They are artists. They business people. They're lawyers. They work in corporate America, and they're committed. They're
Mhm.
committed to the mission, the goals, and ideas of what the institution stands for. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I want people to understand this, and they're committed to seeing Black performers and Black entertainers and Black artists, rise to the level of excellence of what has happened in the country because we've contributed a lot. Sometimes people are afraid to say, well, it's a Black thing. It's not a Black thing. It's an artist thing. And even if there are Black people or Japanese people or Chinese people or white people or Jewish people, it doesn't matter. The reality is that everybody is a part of the melting pot. You
Mm,
know, even when you make the pie still has all of these distinct ingredients in it, and because it's distinct, it's distinct in a good way. When you taste the texture of the pie, it has all of those elements in it, and that's what I think the Black Academy is. Our institution is an institution that's distinctive in its taste style, but it's a part of the pie, the cultural pie.
mhm.
That's what the Millennial Board brings to the table too. They bring that project unity from a cultural perspective. You like that, right?
I love it. Yes,
It's
absolutely.
a it's a
Absolutely.
great group. Now I'm gonna tell you, we go back and forth, and they'll say things to me, and I'll say, they used to say this old, I think it was an African proverb that says, heap sees, but a few knows,
Mm,
and that means different. And I'll tell them, okay, now I'll listen to you, but you can't argue with experience. And so
mhm,
you take my experience, I take your youth, and we
mm,
integrate those peak elements together. And the difference in you and me is it may take you 20 steps to get to the top of the steps. All I need is 10 steps because I've already gone down that path before. And that makes a difference.
oh,
You know,
wow.
So you can't discredit that, and neither am I going to discredit what you bring to the table, because it's not an either or, it's a both and.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. Because we were having some technical difficulties, I do want to get one more. So if
Yes.
those who can stay, please do. Once the renovations begin, how will it affect your programming? Like, or will your programming grow? Tell us a little bit about that and that renovation, and then we're going to wrap up, Mr. King.
Okay. We don't know exactly where we're going to be going at this point, but the city and the convention center, they are working with us. Rosa Fleming is director of the convention center and the project, and Kim Tober is the city manager. She's working with us and members of the council. So they're working to try to find us in place to be able to not only to live for the 2 years, but also to be able to do the jazz festival too. And I feel, so somebody asked me the other day, do you feel that the city is going to come through? I absolutely feel they're going to come through. I think we've been on that path. They have not demonstrated anything to me that's negative, because I think that the institution is very much a part of the cultural vibrancy of the city. So will we lose some programs? Probably, because we don't have a permanent space.
Mhm.
We're going to be looking for space to be able to do, like, the King concert is going to be fine, because we've been doing it at the Symphony Hall all along. But the director of arts and culture, she's working with us too, to make sure that we work with some of the other cultural venues in the city to be able to do what needs to be done. There's a business gentleman here. He has a big project in a big open ballroom, and he's told us, "Okay, Curtis, anything you need, let us know. We'll work with you all." So it's been really fascinating at the people that have been coming to the forefront to say, "Just tell us what you need, and we'll work with you." Jack Matthews, they're doing the film studio. I had an opportunity to visit that with Alonzo Harris and some other people. They even told me, "We got the big studio here, so if you need to use the studio, we'll work with you on doing that." So I feel really optimistic that we finally gotten to a point that people really believe in the idea of what it is that we're doing, because we're helping so many individuals, you know. So if people haven't been to the Black Academy, you have to come, and you got to come during this time period now. You want to be a part of this history, so that when you come back, we want you to come in. Now it's going to be so many people coming when we come back after the renovation. So that means that you might have to stand way in line. So if you need to come on now and get in your place, Charlene, so continue to tell everybody, come on, claim your seat and sit down.
Yes, yes. So we can start on time.
Start on time. That's right.
Awesome. Mr.
Yeah.
King, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. You truly are a living legend, and you have great support from artists and just community members. And so thank you so much for being a part. I want to ask our audience to please send a heart reaction to Mr. King. So if y'all could just, do that heart. There we go. Let's flood the screen with hearts for him, for
Wow.
his journey, his legacy. And you're not going anywhere anytime soon because you have so much more to give. You have so many more lives to touch. So thank you all again for being a part of tonight. Mr. King, we are sending people to your website. Um,
I
uh,
have one more thing to say before you go.
please do.
Butler.
Pastor Richie Butler.
Pastor Butler,
He's
okay,
still
if
here.
he's not there, Pastor Butler, I want to thank you so much for giving me that $1,000 membership. And I'll see you at church Sunday and pick it up. When y'all come, when I walk around the table, however whatever the process is, because I don't want to have to call Pastor Zan Holmes on you.
No, you didn't just call me out. Okay, you got it.
Okay, thank you. I really
I
appreciate it.
got
Thank you for the time. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share this part of my journey with your audience.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And you will now be a legacy with Project Unity, and your story will live on with us. So thank you all for being here tonight. Project Unity has a few more events coming up before we hit the end of the year, but stay tuned because we are going to plan a special Together We Dine with TBAAL for next year, and you will
Yeah,
have to stand in line for that one. So thank you all tonight for being here, and we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
I know. Thank you.